everyone, I am Matt Williamson. How's everyone doing this fine day? I am recording this on Labor Day. Long weekend. I went to Deep Creek with my buds. That was a blast. And now it's time to really start gearing up for week 1 of the NFL season. How awesome is that? I'm not going to get into it much, but practice squad's filling out. Brandon Aiyuk is not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. It seems like a long time ago that happened, but we have not talked or discussed that since. But not surprising, all in all. I mean, it's the right move for the Niners, in my opinion, is keep this guy, maybe move on from Debo in time or after the season, go try to win the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, their first-round pick, Ricky Pearsall, was shot since then, but this is not a 49er podcast. I do think there's a really good chance that the Steelers keep kicking tires on wide receivers, though. I'm sure there's ongoing discussions. I think that they're excited about getting Roman Wilson back. We'll see how much that even happens, if he's even active on game day. But we'll start to get practice reports here soon and all that stuff. So Aiyuk's on the Steelers, a bottom line. I do think that they will continue to be involved. They also announced their captains. No shock, Killebrew is the special teams captain. Joint captaincy with Cam and TJ on defense. And Russell Wilson was named captain for the Steelers on offense as well. Guess that's a good sign. I mean, I can tell you he was highly respected amongst his teammates and carried himself really well at camp, et cetera, et cetera. And that's good. I mean, he's a starting quarterback. I guess that all adds up 100%. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use promo code BELIEVE, capital BLEAV, and get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. I got some questions from you guys to do some mailbag stuff here the rest of the way. But before we do, something I've been meaning to talk to you about is really important to the Steeler offense. So when across the league, this is not a specific team thing, but when offenses come out in 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, the league collectively now is playing nickel against 12 personnel 65% of the time. That's a very high number compared to recent years. If you go back like 5 years ago, it was at like 24%. So why is that relevant? Well, the Steelers are going to play a lot of 12. But their 12 can be different too. Washington and Hayward are both very different. Freiermuth should be out there a lot. The preseason shows us Washington may never leave the field. So I'm just saying, expect to get a high dosage of nickel even when you're in 12. And I wonder, with the physicality of the Steelers and frankly, the lack of skill guys to scare people, will defenses play nickel less than 65% versus the Steeler version of 12? I think I would. I mean, if I was playing defense against Steelers 12 personnel, I think I would be in my base more than I would be in nickel. I mean, depending what kind of players you have, of course. But I think that's really important. Along those lines, Ben Cohen asks, how beneficial can 13 personnel be? That's 1 back, 3 tight ends. And I went and looked, and Arthur Smith and the Falcons were 3rd in the NFL in usage of 13 personnel. So you're going to see a lot of that as well. 3 of those guys out there. I think it'd be very beneficial. Obviously, there's an unbelievable stat of drives that have a one play of 15 or more yards score points like 5 times more often than ones that don't. Where I'm going with this is explosive plays are so important. You might not get a lot of explosives out of 13. You're pretty heavy and there's a lot of blocking. But teams also don't see 13 very much. So, yeah, they'll practice it against, game week. I'm sure the Falcons have something that they're practicing now against Steeler 13. But are they going to play base against that? Are they going to play nickel against it and treat it a lot like 12? I don't know. I mean, you're only one receiver on the field, but it's Pickens, and you can't ignore him or just leave him singled up. I think 13 personnel could be a very successful tactic for the Steelers, considering their variety of tight ends. The fact that they're taking Jefferson off the field, is he really one of their best 11 offensive players? And if you're going to get dime against that, Steelers should run down your throat. Okay, so with Sutton gone for 8 games, will the slot corner position be a rotation, or is it just one guy, and if so, who? I think it's going to be more situational, more rotation. And by that, I mean Bishop's going to be your true slot Hilton type guy, I think. I think that's pretty clear at this point. But I also think you could see a combination of safeties coming down in the big nickel situation. The example, Kyle Hamilton with the Ravens, to me, is one of the few safeties in the league that rivals Minka just in terms of how good they are. But in some packages, he is their true slot defender. He's 6'3" and huge. He doesn't look like Mike Hilton. In some packages, it's the familiar Arthur Millette. Well, I think the Steelers could do frankly, a lesser version of that, with Bishop being the Millette, one of the other safeties being the Hamilton. And that's something you're seeing more and more of, is safeties with slot capabilities. So I do think it could fall on Minka in some occasions, probably KZ more often, and certainly Elliott too, all of whom have done it. Plus, the other thing is when you have those little slots out there, opposing offensive coordinators basically make those guys tackle in the run game. You get Derrick Henry right at you if you're that little slot. That's hard. Hafreed Aleppo, who will be the 2 gunners in Atlanta, which is somewhat similar conversation, and I don't know for sure. I think I'll be able to tell you later in the week after get some boots on the ground, and I'll be down there Thursday. I think Bishop will be one of them for sure. Unfortunately, it's not Watts. That's a heartbreaker. But they could call someone up off the practice squad. Someone that has done it could just be active for that game and go from there or whatever. Otherwise, I assume it'll be Trice or Rush. I'm guessing Rush just from watching practices and camp. Thought he was a little better at it, but I think it'd be one of those 2 with Bishop. But it scares me. As good as this punter is, if those first guys down aren't very good at their job, it might not matter. So that's something to keep an eye on, and I wanted to address it early in the week because it's something I'm going to be looking into quite a bit as well. Last question of the day. Rick Pronesti asked, if he doesn't catch 30 or more passes this season, is it time to reevaluate the drafting of Darnell Washington? Well, this goes back to the 12 and 13 personnel stuff. And I think the answer to that is no. I think drafting him is going to pay off because watching him in camp, I think he might be the most improved Steeler. He's been a nasty run blocker in the league, without question. But now watching him in protection, he looks a lot more like a left tackle than he does a tight end trying to pass block. You know what I mean? Like he looks like a pure pass blocker that has worked on it and sits in his stance and uses his hands well, as opposed to a tight end that's kind of learning how to pass block. You know what I mean? Now, the receiving stuff has to spike from last year. I mean, it has to. I mean, it's going to. I just don't know that he's going to be used a lot in that capacity. I mean, I think he catches 2 or 3 touchdowns. I also think he's moving a lot better than his rookie year. I think his knee was an issue as a rookie. I think his average depth of target will go up somewhat dramatically, but he's not going to be a field stretcher. I think on 3rd and 6, he might be the guy that gets to the change, turns around, boxes somebody out, and then offers a little after the catch, more than a Gentry or a Jesse James, but not hurdling dudes like he did at Georgia. I think a little bit of his athleticism and twitchiness was a bit of a misnomer. I know he ran well at the combine, of course, but I wouldn't judge it on, if this guy doesn't catch 30 balls in year 2, it's a wasted pick. No, he's going to be a hard to play against player with his size and physicality and the way this team wants to play with 2 and 3 tight ends on the field. So I have high hopes for him. I don't have high hopes for him in fantasy football, though. See what I'm saying? I know that's not super exciting. Who's that catch balls around here? I get that. Much more Falcons Steelers stuff to talk about coming up this week. Just wanted to get this one in there, though. There were some questions looming you guys have been asking, and I kind of wanted to hit on a couple of these topics that you guys have been bringing up. So that's a wrap for today. Over and out.